The past 2 weeks I did a two-part video that I was calling The Irritable Woman, where I talked about the irritable woman. In the second one, I talked about what we can do about that, which is basically cultivating a gentle and quiet spirit, which is of great worth in God's sight. Out of that, one of us in this community suggested if I could do a video on how mamas rest, because in the immediate last video where I talked about having a gentle and quiet spirit, I mentioned that one of the things that we need to do is take our rest very seriously. That's what I want to share with us in today's video. Welcome to Formations of a Noble Woman. This is a channel where we share matters womanhood and the woman seeking the mind of God concerning the same, so that you and I can align our lives to His will and purpose. And if you're new here and this is the kind of content you like, kindly consider subscribing, hit the notification bell. You'll be notified every time I upload new content. I upload this kind of content that I trust would be a blessing to you and I, as we trust the Lord to make us into the women He wants us to be. My name is Clara. Also, in case you're new, I am married, a mother of two. I have a passion and desire to see women thrive and become all that God wants them to be, and that's something the Lord has been working in my heart for a long time now. Now, before we get into the content, we will pray, as is always our custom, and trust the Lord to grant us a fruitful time together. Indeed, Father, that's our prayer, that you will grant us a fruitful time. We really desire to do your will as we seek to align our lives to your purpose and will, particularly in this area of rest, and be all that you want us to be. So speak to me, speak to my viewer, and just minister to our hearts so that we will do your will in Jesus' name. Amen. As is becoming my custom to you who is watching as well as listening, I'm just sharing a bit of my life as I talk, as I clean around the house. So I'm hopeful that that video footage will also be a blessing even as you listen. But of course, you can always feel free to listen and not necessarily watch, but the content just makes the video a little bit interesting. Before I get into today's content, as I promised in the thumbnail, I want to share 4 disclaimers, or what some would call also realities, because I think this is important to say before we even talk about ways a mama or a woman can rest. And the first one is that there will be seasons in your life where it will be very difficult to rest or even to establish a routine of rest. I'm just imagining, for example, that woman who has a little baby and they are even trying to train them to sleep, you know, creating a routine around this baby, and sometimes it becomes very difficult when a child is fussy or they are crying a lot and you're up a lot in the night. But thank God, like we are suggesting, it's a season, and we know seasons will come to an end, and this calls for creativity. So you may find that all that I'm sharing may not necessarily fit in very well in that season, but the Lord is able to help you just to be creative, to know how He can help you to rest. And the second disclaimer is that even the best rest routines that we establish can be interrupted because we live in a fallen world. And I'm remembering the example of Jesus telling His disciples after they had preached to come away to a quiet place or something so that they can rest, and the moment they did that, the crowds heard where they were and they all came. I'm sure this was a bit disappointing for the disciples, but Jesus went ahead and ministered to them. So you can see they desired rest, but now the opportunity to minister came. Another time, I think, is when Jesus heard that John the Baptist had died, and I want to believe that struck Him very deeply. He was mourning, and still the crowds came around Him at that particular time when He needed just to be alone, perhaps to be away, and He had to minister to them. So you can see a fallen world, so we may be interrupted many times, but perhaps the Lord wants to help us understand where we are and look to Him for rest rather than just sticking to our routines, which are really good, but as we know they can be interrupted. And the next disclaimer is that we are different. We are all created uniquely, so we rest differently. It may even be that the 7 I suggest or talk about may not even fit with you. That's why the comment section is there, so that you can share with us. Kindly share in the comments how you rest, in case what I have shared may not represent that, because what you share may just be very helpful to someone else who is reading through the comments, and they find your comment and they may find that very helpful for them. And then the 4th disclaimer is that rest is not an opportunity for us to be idle or to be lazy. Remember, the scriptural pattern is you work and then you rest. So you just don't rest for the sake of it. You rest because you are tired and you need to rest. You know, the way in the Old Testament God had established the Sabbath, where they would work for 6 days and then they would rest on the 7th. We have that principle also working for us, so that we don't lazy around. I'm talking about resting, and I have not been working. I have been spending time on my phone. I have been misusing my time. I have not been working diligently, as we know we are told to work. For example, like the Proverbs 31 woman would, we work and then we rest because we need to rest. Let's go to our featured content today. And the first way that you could rest as a mama, especially when you have a busy schedule or you have children, is to sleep in. And I'm not talking about sleeping in all the 7 days of the week. Like we have said, you might find you have a rhythm where you wake up early, maybe at 4, at 5, but you just find that by the 7th day you are just exhausted. So personally, I have found it helpful. I do that. One of the days of the week I will actually sleep in, where I just feel, let me sleep to the point where sleep is gone. What I will do, because I still love to pray, now that if I wake up late I will feel a bit disoriented, I'll still wake up the usual time I wake up for prayer. I pray and then I just sleep and wake up maybe at 8 or 9. Interestingly, I also can sleep beyond that, but usually when I've done that I just feel rested and ready to begin the day. So that's one of the ways you could do, and this also applies, like I have said, to some of us, like for me, where from Monday to Sunday you just find it's difficult to find a moment to rest. I'm thinking also of a mother with a little child. You just find it difficult to find a day where you can fully rest, and so sometimes just taking time to sleep in can also be very helpful. And then the second one that you could do is take a nap. Just take those moments in the day, perhaps to take a nap, so that your body can relax and you can continue on. Many times, because of waking up early, like I said, sometimes I wake up and I start the day, perhaps I'm with the children in school now that we homeschool, and I just feel like I can't handle it. My brain is wanting to sleep, my body is just tired. I will take some time and go and rest, and most of the time I rest for 20 to 30 minutes, even without timing myself. Like recently I just went, lied on the bed and told myself the moment my eyes open again I will wake up. And when I had done that, I had actually rested for about 30 minutes, and that I was very grateful, because after that I was very fresh and able to continue with the day's activities. So that's something you would consider doing as well. Just taking naps, especially like those who in the night you haven't slept well. A 20-minute nap, a 30-minute nap, even 1 hour nap might be very, very good for you. Let me also add that when you are talking about a nap and you have a small baby, I also like to tell young mothers, why don't you sleep when your baby is also sleeping? I know many of us mothers, that's the time you want to do everything that you needed to do. But if you're feeling really exhausted, I think it's also wise to nap when your baby is napping, or also to ensure that you have them very close by. I don't recommend having them in the same bed, though some people have reasons about that, but why not have their crib? Personally, when they were very young, I would have their crib right next to where I was sleeping, so that I don't have to get up and go and take care of them in a different room, but I can take care of them right there, so that when now they get to the point where they are sleeping through the night or they just wake up once, then I can be able to transfer them to a different room. So that's also something that you can do as a young mother. And the third one is simply taking a walk. Just go out of the house, out of the familiar environment, and just go and take a walk. I also think that there's a category of those who love to just go and window shop, and I would say, of course, go and window shop with an empty purse, because you do not want to get into impulse buying, but that may just relax your mind when you look at the different items. You know, just enjoy the beauty of some of the things that you know you're not buying, but you are just enjoying that. I loved to window shop, especially when I was younger and I have just some time to spare. Like if I went to town and I have time to spare, I could just walk around. I think there's a way walking around can help you relax. Right now we are in the countryside, and it's a wonderful way of refreshing. When you go walking down a hill, you come up, you walk on the country roads. That can also help you to relax as a mom, so that as you do that, you rest in a big way, and you can come back refreshed and able to continue with the tasks ahead. The other way is why not consider ordering supper, you know, because that can spare you. I don't know if you're like me. One of the things that keeps me on my toes is making sure that my family is fed. And sometimes when you just think of going to the kitchen to work, and in preparing that supper is just an activity on its own that is quite engaging and can cause you to feel exhausted and tired. So once in a while, why not just order something fair? I was joking to myself that sometimes also, why not just order something from the freezer where you're not doing a lot of cooking? Perhaps you've already cooked a whole meal, and you can tell that if I just take this out, my family can eat this stew, can take some bread, and I can have opportunity to rest. That's something also that you can do, of course, if you can afford that. And also it's something that is a once in a while thing. When you just know, I am tired, I just don't want to cook, I can do this. I remember a guest who came to our home, and I was really blessed when seeing how busy I was, she decided, let's just buy supper today, and that was very relieving for me. So that's something that perhaps could be helpful to someone. This is interesting, but I have found it also helpful for some mothers just to rest by reading a favorite book, reading a favorite story, just relaxing your mind through that. I would also combine it with perhaps taking time maybe to watch an interesting movie that would be a blessing to you, would refresh you, would help you to just get out of there feeling refreshed and ready to continue, because you know you've relaxed your body, you've relaxed your mind, you've just listened to a good story. And of course, I would say just be careful what kind of movies you watch. I know people have a lot to say about movies, but personally I feel let it be a movie that would be a blessing, a movie that would build you up somewhat, a movie that will not take you into a fantasy world. You know those kind of movies I'm talking about. Let it just be a movie that will uplift you, because you'll feel rested, but at the same time you have learned a lesson, or you have been strengthened on your journey, because it's a way of resting, but you want also to be rested in a way that you are benefiting your mind and your mental capacities towards being the best that you can be for the glory of God. And the other one is, why not ask family members to help so that you can rest? Personally, when our children got older and we have taught our older daughter to cook, there are times I will just tell her, please cook supper today. and that way I take some time and go to the room and just rest. There could be a relative in the house, why not have them help? So why not take advantage of that and trust the Lord to help you? Some of us, if you're like me, we find it very hard to accept help. Sometimes somebody actually wants to come and help you, and you just are saying, no, it's okay, it's okay. I think it's good to graciously accept help so that you can be released, because if you would have taken a whole hour in the kitchen, you're going to take 30 minutes, or just releasing that work to somebody else to help you can also release you to go ahead and rest. And then the next one is, I have found meal prepping very helpful when it comes to resting. There's a week I was able to meal prep whole meals. I don't have a lot of freezer space, so I will almost always do a partial meal prep. But there's a season I did whole meals, and for a whole week and a half, I think up to 2, I wasn't cooking in the evenings. I was just picking the food, making sure it's frozen, and then I warm it. I think that was one of the most restful weeks I had, especially in the evenings, because I wasn't doing a lot of cooking. So I would recommend meal planning and therefore meal prepping in a way that you can work with your hospitality in a restful way, a manageable way, so that you can find that you're not always exhausted every evening. And I keep thanking God for that, because I want to go back to that, not just doing my usual partial meal prep monthly, but making sure that I can take some time to do whole meals, and then I can be able to rest. And interestingly, that season I had guests visiting us, and yet I felt very rested. So maybe that's something that you would want to do as a mama to help you to rest. If you can afford, I would encourage you as a mama to get help, whether you want to have a full-time house help or a partial house help. I have had a season where I've had a full-time house help, partial house help the longest, and this time I don't have anybody. And I can tell you, I have been overwhelmed a lot this season, when I thought that maybe let's just take a break and see how we can manage as a family. But I'm coming out of this season knowing I will need help. Whether now I will decide to have a full-time help or have a partial help, I do not know, but I'm trusting God as we speak. Because when you have help, it doesn't mean that you're not going to work, but a lot of the responsibilities you are taking up, and the home can be quite hectic, especially for a stay-at-home mom. When you have somebody to help you, you are much more relaxed to minister to your husband and to minister to your children. We have just released a guest who was so helpful in the kitchen, and I felt the difference, of just having that kind of a help. That's why I know I had to include this here. If you can afford, even if you have just a person helping you once a week, that can make such a difference in helping you organize yourself around being able to rest as a mama. And I pray that the Lord would help you. Pray, even if you can't afford right now, trust the Lord, but I'm sure He will show you how to rest in these other ways that I have talked about, because I know I don't want to assume that we can afford, full-time help. No, I'm just saying that if the Lord can provide something, even if it's once a week. Personally, I have had the longest help for 3 days every week, and that's half day, and it was very helpful in helping me manage. Now that the children are a little older, they can help. So if you have any other ways of resting, kindly share in the comments. And in case you missed that video where I mentioned that, you can find it linked below, like I said, and it is here as an end screen. You can also watch it, but look out for our next video, another video that I trust will be a blessing to you. And until that next video, thank you for watching. Bye.